starting Tara retreat tonight. And why we chose this was because when the pandemic started, His Holiness recommended Tara practice, because there's one of the 21 Taras who is specifically against diseases, and many of them actually in the chanting. Their speciality is to oppose disease. And Tara in general is for quick wisdom and to bring success. And so especially in the middle of a pandemic, when yesterday we had the highest number of deaths in this country from the pandemic since it started. And meanwhile, the people who are governing us are doing their own thing, So, Tara's speciality is to act quickly with quick wisdom, to bring calm, to dispel disease, to dispel hindrances. And this country right now is undergoing many hindrances, from the pandemic to all the conspiracy theories and so on, to climate change and whatever. So it's very good that we do this practice, yeah. And somebody Matt was asking me yesterday about Mummy Tara, okay, and how Lama Yeshe used to call her Mummy Tara, and how do you relate to Tara as your mother? And so I was explaining that it's not your mother in terms of, clean up your room or else. But it's Tara, the one who nurtures, who protects. Yeah, because that's the one that kids, when you're a little kid, that's the one you usually go to when you're scared, is mommy. Okay. And so, Mommy Tara, who's there to help. Yeah. And again, how she helps isn't, by saying, poor baby, I'll take care of it for you. I'll call the principal and tell him off, But Mummy Tara does it by giving us the teachings. Yeah. And as His Holiness was saying last night in his talk, the three jewels gives us the teachings. It's our responsibility to practice them. Okay? So if you think, check your mind and how it's getting rattled right now. If you're rattled by the pandemic, if your mind is really overcome by fear of yourself getting sick, possibly dying, fear of your loved ones dying, then what is the Dharma teaching that you need to meditate on to overcome that fear? Because if you live in a state of fear, you can't act in a virtuous way. So what ideas do you have for how to overcome the fear that you feel regarding yourself or your loved ones get sick? What are you going to meditate on? The kindness of others. Why would you meditate on that? Yes.
When I reflect on the kindness of others, the focus goes off of myself, who's so afraid and disturbed and anxious. And it brings me some peace of mind, knowing that there's all this goodness in the world, really, that we're showered with daily if we look at the circumstances that we're in. Even if I'm in a hospital, with COVID, there's so many people that are trying to help me, for example.
Yeah. Okay. So how thinking of the kindness of others turns our mind to something virtuous, and so that we can see the goodness in the world, not see the world as something fearful. Yeah.
What came into my mind was I would meditate on death, because I am going to die, and so it's an opportunity, if I'm fearful of all of that, to start working with calming my mind and accepting and putting in place this idea about the long view. This mind stream is going to have many lifetimes. And so what am I doing now so that next life I can continue to practice? And so look at it that way.
Okay, so really preparing for death, generating your aspirations, generating a good motivation. Yeah, and accustomizing yourself to the idea that you're going to die and that the people you care about are going to die, and that this is a natural part of life. It's not a mistake. It's not something that shouldn't happen. Once we are born, death is definite. Yeah, and the more we can accept that fact, the more then we can prepare for how we want to die, and then the less fear we have of death.
What came to mind was to think about death also, and also because for me it seems like the part about the only thing that will help will be the Dharma. I mean, that's the only thing that's going to help. So when faced with those things, we need to turn to that. Actually, maybe it's more thinking of death as leading into the proper refuge. Because I notice sometimes when people face a crisis, they turn to things that actually won't really help them.
Yeah.
I see this a lot. Even if they have religion sometimes in their lives, it's not what they turn to. And the things they turn to are like, changing the subject, going out to dinner, shopping. Those things aren't going to help you when you're dying.
Yeah, so really focusing on what's important in your life, and especially along that line, which is decreasing our attachment to the 8 worldly concerns. Yeah, because when we say only Dharma will help us at the time of death, what does that mean? Do we sit there and go, Dharma help me, Dharma help me? What does it mean? How will the Dharma help us at the time of death? What do we have to do so that the Dharma can help us? And what's interfering with the Dharma helping us? It's mostly the 8 worldly concerns, isn't it? Yeah, attachment for 4 of them, aversion to the other 4, and those are the big impediment to Dharma actually helping us, because our minds are consumed by the 8 worldly concerns. As is illustrated by what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. Yeah? Nobody thinking about, or there are some Buddhists there, but who's thinking about what kind of karma are we creating? Yeah? Who's thinking about what are we setting up for our own future lives through our actions today? Who's thinking about that one phrase in Shantideva's dedication, and may people think of benefiting each other? Who's thinking of benefiting? Or are people just so angry that they think they're benefiting, but they've lost track of that? Yeah. And how are we benefiting? Yeah. Are we working for this life's benefit, long-term benefit? Yeah.
Yeah, and the theme of Amitabha's reply, I think when one is too overwhelmed, like you news before you gave what's happening in the capital right now, it could be so overwhelming that the fear is just too much. I certainly go back to my breath. That's number 1. And then second, refuge, very strong refuge. And not just refuge, like doing the prayer, but regularly, actually, every day and every session I'm sitting, I'm trying to cultivate that so that when I need it, it's there. The refuge is strong enough.
Yeah.
And then, being familiar with the Tonglen practice, that helps me very much to overcome fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, to really enrich our refuge every day, and to really think about what taking refuge means and what the 3 jewels protecting us means, and what only the Dharma will help us at the time of death means. Yeah. What does that look like? What does that mean? We make prayers, to be born in Sukhavati, and it's described in vivid terms of may the 8 bodhisattvas accompany Amitabha as Amitabha comes to get me at the time of death and take me to Sukhavati. Well, some people may have that kind of vision, I mean, if you do a lot of practice like that and it's really familiar, that kind of thing will come in your mind. The way I think of it is, I'm not expecting Amitabha to come and say, okay, come on, put your shoes and socks on, we're going to the Pure Land. Okay, and I'm going, I'm trying to put my socks on, but my leg won't bend very well. Yeah, what I'm thinking of, how is Amitabha? Who is Amitabha? Yeah, Amitabha is bodhicitta and wisdom. Yeah, what I need at the time of death is to remember bodhicitta and wisdom. That's Amitabha coming for me, being able to let go of this life, because actually there's no real person who's dying. And let go of the 8 worldly concerns about, am I dying the way I should? What are they going to say about the way I'm dying? I mean, I'm the abbess of this place, and if I don't put on a good show and die and look peaceful, if I'm sitting there, clutching and I'm crying because I'm terrified, my God, my whole reputation is going to go to bits, So I better really get it together and make it look good. Yeah? Yeah, for sure. Venerable Chuni is going to have a group photo. Yeah, she'll have you all lined up, and yeah, okay. So, yeah, like what is this gonna, how do I have to prepare for death? What am I gonna do at the time of death? Okay, so, yeah, to really think about these things. So in your retreat, think deeply about some of the phrases that you hear so often, but that you've never really gone into to ask, what do those phrases really mean? Yeah. Okay. And then if you get bored, saying mantra, and you're sending out so many taras, and it's like to benefit all these sentient beings, and you're really tired of it. Your visualization needs something more exciting. Send taras out to the capital. Put taras on the head of all those protesters. Put taras on the head of all the people inside the capital who are putting, who are doing whatever they're doing. Put tara on Trump's head, to help this poor guy accept reality. Yeah. So, when I find, if I leave the meditation too abstract, I'm just sending out taras and they benefit sentient beings. That's nice, but I'll get tired of it. Yeah. So do real situations where people's minds are completely overwhelmed by defilements, and send Tara there and think, what would Tara do here? Yeah. And think, what would be skillful means? If I were there, or if I had Tara's power, what would be the skillful means to help in this kind of situation? And if something from the past comes up that you don't feel good about, it's still rankling you, put Tara back in that previous situation. And how would Tara act? And how would Tara think about that situation, you know? And then extend Tara's compassion to all the other people in it. So really think of specific ways, you know, that you can visualize and bring Tara into your life. And it helps you think about what our skillful means to deal with situations. Yeah, even though we aren't Tara. So we may not, don't start with what can I do in this situation, okay? Don't think skillful always means what can I do. First, work on your attitude. If you bring up something from the past or you bring, Tara to Washington, D.C., first work on calming your own attitude, yeah? And having an attitude of compassion for all the people involved. No matter how much you disagree with me, no matter how much their actions may have harmed you. Yeah, to be able to have compassion for them. So work on that first, and then think, how could you diffuse it at the situation? And sometimes, the best way to diffuse a situation is to just sit there calmly. Yeah. But there's many ways to diffuse situations. Yeah. So just, think about it. Okay.